Recent reports indicate that Nigeria has the fastest growing Christian populace anywhere in the world, and we have not just Christians but Muslims, and you seems to be one of the very few voices we hear. Don't you feel isolated amongst men of God? Don't you also feel threatened, in terms of how government will react if the stance you're taking gets in direct confrontation to those in power?
I'd never feared for my life from when I was young till now, because like Shakespeare said, cowards die many times before their death. The valiant only taste of death but once. My father died. My brother, sister younger than I am had died. But the older ones than I am had died. We had a class reunion, the class of 1980, the year I graduated from university 30 years ago, this year. And some of our classmates I heard there had died. So let me use my life for something useful that will outlast me and that will count for eternity. Who cares? Jesus Christ, my Lord, came here and spent, the one who created the earth, spent 33 years. I'm 55, going 56. I'm living like double the time he had lived already, or more than 1.5 times the number of years he had lived here. I don't fear death. I think death fears me. And those who think I should be concerned about or worried about that they can attack me, it's only cowards who would take out the life of another person who is contributing meaningfully to society in his own manner. Do you understand me? So as far as death is concerned, I don't fear death at all. I owe death nothing. Death is not my boss, it's my horse. When it's time to go home, I'll say, bye-bye planet Earth. It's been nice knowing you, and I'll call the horse to come and I ride it. For to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. For me to live is Christ, to die is gain. If to die is gain, why are Christians believing? Why are Christians afraid of death? Except that we're hypocrites. Everybody, like Peter Tosh said, everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to die. So let's forget that it doesn't even, it is not in my consciousness. I never let it bog me down for 1 second. Because if you don't count that cost, you can't do what you're doing now. That's one. Two, as for being lonely amongst men of God, not at all. There are too many of them behind this movement in different forms and in different supportive roles. I met Pastor Deboye recently, and he said, you know what, we thank God for what you are doing. Not only that, this particular year is going to ensure that in the convention, the major thing that is going to be emphasizing is that every Christian must register, every Christian must vote, and with all they got, they must defend their vote because we are too many to be ignored.
Now, when you emphasize the role of the Christian populace in the election, what's the relationship between the SNG is meant to be a group of diverse people, Muslims, Christian. What's the relationship between yourself and non-Christian members of the organization? You must realize that I occupy a very unique position for so many reasons. In the wisdom of God, Moses was a Jew raised by an Egyptian Pharaoh's daughter, to the extent that he was called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. Do you understand me? And by the time he ran away from Egypt, they called him an Egyptian when he got to the home or to the place of his father-in-law. The same thing happened to Paul, a Jew who was born in Tarsus, that they called him when his name became Paul of Tarsus. But when he was arrested, I said, are you not the Egyptian that led terrorists into the wilderness? There were too Jewish to be called Egyptians, and there were too Egyptians to be called Jewish. Here was I. I was born into a Muslim home. I was raised a Muslim. I read the Quran from cover to cover. I graduated from Quranic school. My grandfather was first chief imam of our area. My mother went to Mecca and Medina. We had a great family heritage in Islamic religion. My father was a chieftain. He was called Anibi Juwanlekeu, the one who has a noble birth when it comes to Islamic religion. Do you get my point? When I graduated from Quranic school, a handwritten Quran from my grandfather was handed over to me as a tradition of the family. I was being raised to become the next chief imam, to be presented by our family, when Jesus saved my soul over 36 years ago. So I've seen both sides.
there is hardly any family, especially in the Southwest, where you don't find Muslims, where you don't find Christians. Do we kill ourselves? I am not going to condemn a man for what he believes. I may not condone or authorize every belief system he has, but if that is the way he knows now, I know in Acts of the Apostles chapter 13, the Bible says, God allowed all nations in past generations to walk in their own ways. That's why I feel comfortable with a Professor Wole Soyinka. That's why I will feel comfortable with a Malam or a Muslim chieftain or chief imams that are in our midst. The reason is, the Bible says, in the last days, the mountain of the Lord's house shall be on top of all the mountains, and shall be above all hills, and all nations shall flow into it. And many people will walk in the name of their God, but we will walk in the name of our God. Our God is not intimidated by other gods. That's a pure and simple thing.
Do you have any difficulties with the SNG in terms of funding, in terms of participation by other Nigerians? What are the major challenges facing the...
Well, a project like this requires, a lot of funding. But either two, God has given us incredible people and leadership who are sacrificing on a daily basis to ensure that the needs are met. And we are now enlarging our coast and extending our borders to within the country and outside the country, that if all Nigerians can truly believe in our cause and contribute minimally by way of registration fee, membership fee, and free will donation, we will have enough to do what we want to do, because we are not frivolous, we are not living a high, expensive life at the expense of donors, and we are not doing any, we are modeling something new that you can lead by way of sacrifice, by way of commitment, not by taking advantage of others and just living big at the expense of people. We are modeling that at SNG. But one thing you can be rest assured of is, whereas our doors are open to those who want to freely donate, nobody can dominate us with their money. You can buy into our vision, we won't let you buy it over.
One of the major questions, because when we had readers on SaharaRepoters who send in questions, the one that got the most aggregate is the question about your relationship with your fellow men of God. Actually, the top two names were Dr. David Oyedepo, or Bishop David Oyedepo, and
Pastor Enoch Adeboye.
Pastor Enoch Adeboye. And it's quite amazing. Quite everybody was asked, what the question they were asking, what is the relation between Pastor Bakare, Pastor Adeboye, and Dr. David Oyedepo, Bishop Oyedepo? Is there any friction? Is it that you disagree with their method of teaching? Is it that you do not agree with their being non-political? And again, the curious question, one of our readers said, how come you did not visit President Yar'adua, when he popularly came back into Nigeria, accompanied the other men of God? So what would be your reaction to that?
Well, thank you very much. Nigerians need to grow up in so many areas. Number one, they confuse issues with persons. There are issues, there are persons. If you are talking of personal relationship, there is no friction, at least from my standpoint. This night, I didn't know this question was coming, but I told you I met with Pastor Adeboye recently, and what he said concerning what we are doing, how he's thankful to God for it, and how he's going to make the free, fair, and credible election a cardinal issue in their coming convention. And Oyedepo and I had met on a number of occasions. We were best of friends, and to the best of my knowledge, let me tell you an example of what happened. We were in the plane one day going to Nigeria, Oyedepo and I, and he came over to my side in British Airways where we were seated, and we were both eating. And one of my daughters in the faith was in another cabin. He came to see me, and he saw us eating. She almost fainted, because people think these people must be at war. Great men, think of issues and ideas. Little minds talk of personalities. I cannot afford to hate any person or allow anyone to reduce me to the point of discussing petty issues. If there are conflict in our ideas, they will be resolved within time, because all you need to do to point out to a crooked stick that it is crooked is to place a right stick by its side. I don't call names, I don't abuse people, not at all. So those who think there are frictions have it in the figment of their imagination, and they must learn to separate issues from persons.
There's the advent of the social media, social network. Now what we have is citizen journalism, either citizen using social platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, Mebo, and then SaharaRepoters and others. So do you follow online media?
Look, I have a whole staff. I can even give you his name so that you can verify. His name is LatterRain. The first thing he does in the morning is to print hard copies of SaharaRepoters for me on daily basis. You'll be shocked that anytime I'm home, as I come for breakfast, the regular newspaper, this day Punch and this, they are on one side, but on top of it is SaharaRepoters, this Niger, this, that. They are all there because we know our people have lost confidence in regular newspapers because they are becoming nothing but expressions of money bags and those who are using them to advance their own political interests. So we want to know exactly what is happening elsewhere and what perspectives are coming. So I am an ardent reader of SaharaRepoters, and we have such good relationship with the organization that we are committed to ensuring that SaharaRepoters become a force to reckon with, that other stations like CNN, like Sky News, and all this, whatever is important that you want to know about Nigeria that is credible, we trust that SaharaRepoters will be there to do that.
So what would be your vision for Nigeria? What would you think is the way forward? We know of all the problems confronting our nation. What is the way forward?
It is suicidal to criminalize our country and to make it look like a hopeless country that has no future. There's future in Nigeria. I believe in Nigeria with all of my passion. The human resources, the material resources. What is waiting is a credible visionary leader who can harness this like Joseph and put all these resources together, make us sit at the table of brotherhood, give a template for true federalism, give a template for redistribution of our resources in an equitable manner, and begin to develop, allow each region or state to develop at its own pace. What is the strength in this area? Where is the weak area of this one? If this is your focal strength and this is what we want to do, allow them to begin to develop and begin to concentrate more on things that bind us together rather than things that divide us.